Hi, yeah, welcome and good afternoon to our talk about the AI-generated code and the legal risks. I'm Andreas Kotulla, founder and CEO of Bitsy, and today I am here with Chanyo Yoon.
Yeah, Andreas, I think we have to really speed up. We have so much to talk about, so let's just delve in.
Okay, to start, I would like a short survey. So if you could please all grab your mobile phones and have a look at this code. I would just like to see how many people of you are using AI code generation already, or who writes the code in your company. So is that still humans, classical approach? Is it just AI? Or do you have a mixture, like a dream team, humans and AI? Or you don't write code at all? I'm just curious to see what
humans and AI. Right.
Humans and AI. So we did the same, the first of these talks 2 years ago at the Bitkom open source event in Erfurt. And there the survey, it was a little bit different. So it was not that much AI as we can see right now.
Okay. That was the AI one. I lied.
Thank you. So then we would like to have a view on the risks. So what do you do with the generated code? Do you just take it as it is? Or is it somehow checked if it is legally sound? So there's just yes or no, or you don't know.
You're not obliged to give an honest answer here. I'm a lawyer, so check with your company.
And also here we see a big change from 2 years ago. So many people now are aware that there are some risks with open source, and we see that it is being checked. So today we're going to give you some great examples, and we want to talk about how all of that works. When we look at AI-generated code, so 2 years ago when I had the first talk about that, it just all started. And people saw that the AI generation, it's not just generating code. So it's a reuse, it's a copy-paste. So very often there are parts of the original code in whatever is being produced.
Wait a minute, I didn't expect that. You mean it's not generating, it's just copying?
In big part. So, and we'll have some very nice examples for that. Okay. Today, the world has changed. So 2 years ago, it just started, developers started using AI. Today, it's everywhere. If we look at the code, or if we, from Bitkom, every year we do or every second year, we do an audit or a survey with all the German companies. And we did that last year, and about 80% of the companies said, yes, we are using AI to generate code. The code that you get from the companies today is said to be around 30% is AI generated. And on the other hand, about half of the engineers, they're very concerned about the code that is there because they don't know about the risks and if there are any. And that's what we are going to show you today, how you can handle those.
Andreas, just a couple of days before we met here, I asked you, are we really up to date? Do we still have the problem? I thought maybe technology must have improved. And you said, no, what did you say?
It increased a lot. So it's, you had the concern that AI is not important anymore, well, but it's getting more and more important.
The first question is, are we using AI code? Obviously, yes. But the second question is it still copying? And obviously it does.
It does. And we added some nice examples in there.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Chardet rewrite today, the one that came up a couple of weeks ago.
So first we want to see, the question is, does an AI generate everything? Or is there this copying? And I just have some examples on how this really works. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you will see the prompt that I will put into an AI system. And here we have Copilot that I used. And I just wanted to do a matrix transpose. So it's a mathematical algorithm. And the AI is really great in that. So it will quickly generate some code to turn around the matrix. You see it's quite complicated, but it just takes minutes to write that. Why can it do so? Because the AI was trained by some code, and very often it's open source. So if it would be like that, we should be able to find the source of that code somewhere. So we looked around and we found something in GitHub. And so it's a question to all of you, can you spot the difference? And I know it's a little bit small from the back, but I can tell you in here, it's all the same. The variables are the same. Even the comments that you see are the same. But there is one big difference. Maybe, Chan, you can see.
Yeah, there's a license up there, LGPL license. So this was licensed code that was reproduced by GitHub. And there's no more license there anymore. Well, that's good news, right? That's how to get rid of licenses.
Yeah. So does that matter?
Well, to the people who use GitHub, maybe not. But to us lawyers, it does matter a lot because obviously this is a copyright infringement. Because and we don't have to explain what the LGPL says, but obviously we have an issue here.
I have another example. So again, in Copilot, if you try to write a function is even, so you just want to check for a number, is it even or is it odd? Again, here's the prompt. I just start writing like that, and it's great. The AI will kick in immediately, and it will write a check. It looks a little bit strange for those of you who can develop code. So it's first testing, I give it a number, then it's testing, is it 0? If yes, then it's even. Is it 1? Then it will return false. If not, it will first test, is it a negative number? Then it will turn it around. And otherwise, it calls itself by subtracting 2. If you look at the algorithm, it will work, but it may not be the ideal algorithm. So it's not really performant. So everybody would ask, why would an AI do that? Maybe we can find a source again. And this time, it's a book, Eloquent JavaScript. And what we find in this book, there is a whole section. It's explaining recursion and how it works. So you can imagine where this comes from. This is a very nice example to explain recursion to somebody who doesn't know how it works. And many people must have typed this example, and the AI found the solution hundreds and thousands of times on the internet. So it thought it must be good. So this is what you get. It's not ideal.
Now I understand your example.
So if you are an experienced developer, you would just write it like this. So this would be much easier and much faster. And I have one last example that I want to show you. Who remembers the game Quake 3 from 1999?
Yeah, the old guys here.
And
on the 386 processor, right?
Yeah, and you know it has lots of 3D graphics, and to present those, you need lots of mathematical functions. One of those is the inverse square root. And that's a function which is very expensive to calculate, so it will take lots of time. And there was a very smart developer at that time who invented an algorithm that is very quick by shifting some bits in the register. And this is a very good approximation for a square root.
With the magic number. You forgot the magic number. Yeah.
So what you see here, again, the prompt, I want to have this inverse square root. And what is very good here, I get a copyright holder, I get a license, and then I get this great algorithm where you see you have this crazy magic number, which works. And it's still used today. So in many engines that need to generate 3D graphics, you will have exactly that algorithm. Again, we looked for the source, and we found this. So it was written by ID Software. We find this Quake 3 original. There's a different copyright holder, a different license.
Oops, GPL.
And again, the code is exactly the same. And again, you find the same magic number, the same comments. Can, is it okay?
No, obviously not. Unless, of course, you would say that this is an algorithm that should belong into the public domain because it would then else monopolize. And that's something we can talk about. But other than that, this is a GPL violation. Anything that's derived from that is covered by the copyleft effect. So the entire software has to be published under the open source license of GPL. Yeah.
Okay. So what we see here is a typical hallucination of the AI system. It knows there should be a copyright holder. It knows there should be a license. So it's giving all of that. As a developer, this is very difficult to see. You think everything is fine and it's okay. It looks great, but it's not correct.
So forget about Fossology and Scan Code and all the other ones who just look at the headers, because you will be fooled by wrong license information there.
Yeah. And here's one new example that you may have heard about, Chardet. So this was now, it's a very interesting case that we recently
Can we just have a hands up? Who has heard about the Chardet case? Oh, whoa, wow. Okay, a couple of people here, right. All right.
And Chardet, what happened? Some developer had written a library a long time ago and released it under LGPL. He stopped working on it. There was a new maintainer. And since long, he wanted to have a more permissive license to distribute the library more easily. So what he had an argument with the original owner, and he said, no, I don't want to change it. So what he did, he took the whole Chardet, put it into an AI, got a rewrite, which is completely different from the original code. I think he also did a check that was just 1% or so is the same of the code. And now he released it under MIT.
Still with the name Chardet under the version 7 now. So version 6 is still under LGPL. The rewrite, it's much faster, quicker, and it's liberal under MIT.
So that means we don't need copyright licenses anymore, do we?
Well, it could mean, let's do it with Chardet or the Linux kernel. What comes next? Can we just use any software, rewrite it with AI within a couple of hours, and then republishes under commercial license or MIT license or whatever? Now, that's really exciting case, because here we don't have a literal copy of the original code. If you run scan code, or even if you run Black Duck over the new code, you will have 0 findings. It's a completely new software. But yet, we believe this is a copyright infringement. First of all, there is no such thing as a clean room implementation when you use a large language model, because the large language model has been trained with all the software that's out there. So it has known Chardet. And I tried it out. I mean, I don't write a single line of code. I asked Claude Code, hey, can you rewrite Chardet for me? And he only needed that one word. And it took him 50 minutes to write a new implementation of Chardet. So, and this new implementation was derived from the original software. And even if I tell them, don't derive from it, don't use it, don't think of it, you can't tell an LLM not to think of something when you tell them what to think, not to think about. So obviously, clean room does not work. But I think it's not the end of it. I think we are seeing something big coming up here. Because if you would rewrite it in a real clean room process, if you would see the specifications and have a new code written by a human or by an AI-assisted human, we lawyers would look at the code and see, does it have the same architecture? Is this the same SSO, structure, sequence, organization? Is the core still the copyrighted functionality, architecture, is that the same or is it not? And if you somehow manage to create a new architecture with AI or without AI, you could be able to rewrite legally and get rid of the former license.
So that's a great future.
So great future for people who don't make their living on open source compliance. Yeah. But until that, maybe for another 1 or 2 years, we can chase those people who do a bad job at rewriting because they would just putting it into Claude. But just make sure, just because we say this may not have been legal, it doesn't mean it's not possible to legally rewrite with AI. And maybe it's a business model. Maybe I wrote you an email yesterday, hey, should we just shift over, start something new, and either hunt those who do a bad job or create a service that creates new architecture for legal rewrite? Shall we start with the Linux kernel or something else?
And today we heard there's a website already that does that.
So a lot of questions coming up. And I had a lot of discussions today with people, like with Matthias out here, and arguing about the legal situation of it. We always have to take 2 different approaches. I'm a lawyer. I don't create law. I don't say what is right or wrong. I just give predictions on what courts may say in the future. And courts tend to stay with what they have learned in the last 10 years. For example, that everything that's complicated must be human-made, and everything that's simple must be machine-made. And everything that's machine-made cannot be complicated. And therefore, nothing that comes out of a machine can create a new copyright or can be protected or could be distanced from a former work. Now, that's obviously technology bullshit. But my guess is that's what will happen in the future, that it will be really hard. Shall we take questions now? Do we have time for that? But yes, you want...
Going back to the inverse square root formula and the code you showed, is there a room to discuss
Definitely yes.
And
Yeah.
does it change the outcome of your statement?
It could. I mean, the Quake 3D, because it's a very short algorithm, one could argue that the idea, which is not protected, should not be protected. If you have a different expression of that, if you just rewrite it from the idea, you would be able to create an algorithm that's not a copyright infringement. And that's what we will be talking about in the future with a lot of algorithms probably. Because we will not just be looking at license headers and literal expressions, but ideas and concepts. And that means we lawyers will have to learn a lot about algorithms, and you people will have to learn about law. Yeah.
Yeah, so that brings us to, we've just mentioned some examples. Now,
that's my part again.
That's your part.
So much. Yeah.
What are the problems?
Okay, it could be cynical a bit. We ended with a cynical note in the last session. If you can not solve the problem, make your problem someone else's problem. All right? Okay, you either solve the problem or you push the problem to someone else if you can. And that's what reminded us of the game Schwarzer Peter. I don't know if there's an expression in that in English. Just make sure someone else has a problem. So if you create the software, tell your customer, hey, I created the software with AI. It's probably full of copyright infringement. That's all right for you, isn't it? Maybe you can put it a little more nicely. Maybe you could hide it somewhere in the small print or something. But actually, if you can't solve the problem, which you should, and Andreas will help you with solving the problem, that's one way to using contracts to just tell the other person that you are producing AI-created code. On the other hand, if you are buying the code, if you are the OEM, I saw that. 10 minutes. If you are buying the software, just make your supplier promise with blood that whenever there should be any AI written code in there and you have to call back all your products, your cars will be taken off the street because you created something with GitHub, that he will have to pay for that. And he will just pass on this problem to the last person who cannot afford a complete recall of 20,000 cars. So problem solved.
So we have one nice example from...
people, big things are happening. On the one hand, we see more and more copyright infringements. But on the other hand, we see, and those of you who've been doing open source compliance the last few years may have noticed that you run into an argument, all right, I understand there's compliance, but who cares? Where are the cases? That's what happened to us. So I kind of thought, let's change sides for a moment, just for a game, just to try out. Especially when we found out that there was a car in our parking lot from our law firm that had no license compulsory statement. We asked them, hey, you forgot to put them in the car. They must be somewhere. Where are they? Could you send them over? And by the way, the source code as well, probably you have Linux in there. And they did not respond. They had nothing on the website. And basically just said, leave me alone in a nice way. So that's MG. We can call the name because maybe you may have followed our case on LinkedIn or YouTube. So instead of looking for a copyright holder or a customer, we took our own case to court, to the District Court Landgericht of Munich 1. The same court, by the way, and the same chamber who made the ruling of GEMA versus OpenAI. So the people who at least think they have an idea of what technology and open source is about. So we filed that lawsuit, and maybe you followed up. There was this video where this car was loaded on a truck, and they took it away and brought it back 2 days later, and the only difference was there's a QR code inside now. So if you are waiting for a court decision on the question is, does along with the software really mean is in the car, or is it okay to just have a QR code? We'll have a solution to that, an answer to that. But first of all, can we have Linux operating system probably 10 times in a car and not provide source code? And could it be a good decision for a company to rather not provide the source code instead of giving a source code and showing everything what's inside the source code, because that's what they decided on. They are working really hard on open source compliance now. I think they have to make up for a couple of years. And on the way, probably, they found out,
Yeah,
we
it's taken
cannot
them
provide.
many months already.
Yeah, they try to prolong every time frame they have, and still they have not provided source code. And we have a long list of software that's in there: GPL3, GPL2, LGPL, everything commercial licensed, everything inside. Because that's what happens usually when people start over. They just present a long list with all the brutal truth that's inside, which is really helpful because this way we learn that they are using GPL3 software, which has nothing to do in a car, because you cannot exchange the software in a car, because else you would lose your license to operate the car on street. So that's the case. We have no verdict yet. There's a public hearing coming up in fall.
So we have one more slide from...
Yeah, we went to the IAA, whoever came up with that stupid name, Mobility. Internationale Automobilausstellung Mobility in Munich, and we crawled into a lot of cars, and I mean, that's no big surprise what we found in those cars, and some people tell us, we would really like to do compliance, but we have no money for that, so please don't sue us. So that's what we did. A lot of cars, and actually, we found some positive examples. Avatar was one of those, and also Talk. I didn't even know the names, but there are some who are doing compliance and others who don't. It turns out batteries also have a Linux operating system, and have not seen the source code of those yet. So,
okay,
Andreas.
So we see it everywhere. So one of the biggest questions then, how can I detect AI code? So if you get some code base, do you know where is AI code and where is humanly written code? And it's extremely difficult to see that. Technically, what you could do is look at the structure of the code. Are there very generic variables? Does the code do more than it should do? So is there some overhead? Or you can look at the semantic. Very often AI leaves out some edge cases. But all of that is just very vague, so it will not give you a 100% answer. What you could do, for example, is ask your developers, whenever they use AI code, please use a tag. So we can see in GitHub, for example, generated by Copilot or something like that. That are all indicators, but to see AI-generated code is getting more and more difficult as the code gets better and better. Then the question is, what can you do in a company or as a developer with this AI-generated code? So first of all, we recommend have some guidelines. So make developers aware of the risks that you have in AI-generated code, and then mark the code, which parts are AI-generated, ideally which LLM was used, which version, and also the prompt that you used to generate the code, just to make it reproducible. That's one part. Of course, there are many technologies how you can find it. There's, for example, GPT Detect or Clean GPT, several open source tools that you can use just to find the code that was generated. You can put the code into that machines and they will tell you there is a chance of 60, 70, 10% that the code was AI generated. I did it with some different samples and parts. Sometimes it was very accurate, sometimes it was way off. What you can also do is use snippet detectors that can detect the code which was originally used to train the machines. That is one mechanism that you can use to detect that AI-generated code. And of course, you should look at your contracts. And you mentioned that already. What do I need to do in my SLAs and the contracts with my suppliers and with my customers?
Well, honestly, we don't have good technical solutions right now to be really sure. I mean, if you have unlimited funding, of course, I could analyze every line of code and see if it has appeared somewhere else, literally, or also if the structure has appeared somewhere else. I mean, basically, I think I could take every product from the street and find some sort of copyright infringement. Usually it's easier than that. Usually you just look for the GPL tags and know there's a copyright infringement. But that's something coming up, and probably tools will be smarter also in the future. So exciting times to come here.
Okay, so that's our short summary of the risks of AI-generated code already.
And we ran out of time for questions now, or do we have a couple? Okay.
1 minute left.
We'll have 5 minutes left. No problem at all.
Just as
Thank you very much for this really
Thank you.
great talk.
Thanks, guys. I love the energy. The question about the proprietary code or ownership of the code, at least in some areas right now, for example, in creative space, start to feel a bit obsolete. And I've heard arguments that in the future, we shouldn't even bother ourselves with the copyright of the code because you won't be able to tell. But we should shift our focus from the ownership of the code into the ownership of the process. Like, so, for example, you cannot put a copyright on a code that you produce, but you can put the copyright on the process, on the prompts and the whole, the steps that you take. What's your opinion on that?
I think you're on the right way. It's not the process, it's more what currently they call structure and architecture. That's what receives and deserves protection. But it will take a time for us lawyers to understand what it's about. For right now, we are just looking at the code, just literal expression.
Yeah, because that's the example I saw in the creative space, that for example, for artists generating in AI space, a lot of them do not claim any copyright over the, the picture
expression, yes.
something, but they claim copyright over the whole process.
Yeah.
Could be the future.
Yeah. So I think it's an important question. You could, in future, use any book that you like. You just put it into an AI and say, please rewrite. Yeah. What is the result? That's the same with code or a picture.
Thank you for the talk. I have a question related to Chardet. You said, like, maybe that's a way to rewrite the license. Maybe that's coming. And I'm wondering, is the output actually copyrightable at all so that I can choose a license? Is it because that's the other alternative, right?
Yeah,
so what's your take on that?
Definitely. We always have to see, is there an infringement creating it, and do you have protection of what comes out of it? And usually whatever comes out of a machine is said to not be copyrightable because it's not a human-made product, menschlich-schöpferische Leistung. However, there was, he worked 5 days on it, at least 5 days. And so prompting could be a generative human process. So here we are again at the process. Could be, but that does not mean that the literal expression of the code is really copyrighted. So it strips down to something else, the architecture again. More questions? Yeah, the one in the very back.
Architecture is a good point because I believe that it comes to architecture again and again, and you cannot write good code if your architecture isn't available or just not the right architecture or enough architecture for what you want to achieve. My question, how do you feel like what is important to make the architectural concept?
Let us not think technologically for a moment. As lawyers, I would really welcome it if we could say any architecture that's human-made is good and protectable. Let's say that good architecture can only be made by human. Let's think of it. That would be a solution. That would mean all architecture is a creative process only capable to be made by human, and then we're on the safe side. However, we all know that architectural designs can also be made by machines, and they could be created newly and creatively. But for right now, we lawyers will believe that any architecture is human-made, and therefore that's our retreat line. From code, we go back to architecture and maybe process something else, but I don't know where this will lead us in the future.
Thanks, guys, for this really futuristic talk.
Thank you very much.